Hey everybody, my name is Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I post a new video every Monday about the astrological forces affecting us in the coming week and helping you to navigate them. In today's video, we'll be talking about the Leo new moon, which is on Tuesday, August 18th, and how we can get the most out of this fresh new start, as well as other astrological factors that will affect your week. The new moon in Leo is August 18th, and in the Eastern time zone, it begins at 10:41 p.m. Please adjust for your own locality. When the moon is said to be new, it's the fusion of the sun, the solar conscious attention to the outer world, and the moon, which is the instinctive lunar reaction to the inner world. With the sun, we look out, and with the moon, we look in. When those two energies are fused, it's a brilliant new start to a new lunar cycle. So this is a wonderful time to begin something new, to plant new seeds. On Monday the 17th, the day before the new moon, is the dark and waning phase. That's when we're letting go of things that no longer serve us in preparation for the new phase. It's a good time to end anything that's not working for you anymore. It's also a good time to be turning inwards and listening to the inner voice, the voice of guidance that helps us to move more effectively through the world. When the moon is invisible in the sky, when the sky is dark, that's when the new moon is occurring. When the crescent begins to show, that's actually the beginning of the waxing phase. The new moon is actually that kernel of ripeness where we've planted the seed. We're just waiting for it to start to sprout. The Leo moon is particularly concerned with development of the self. Leo is ruled by the sun. It has to do with the physical heart, generosity, creativity, abundance. Under the Leo new moon, we find the highest and most joyful expression of ourselves. So this is a wonderful time to look at our life and see where are we not able to express ourselves in the most joyful way possible. Where are we experiencing limitations? Where are we putting ourselves down? Where are we criticizing ourselves? These are experiences that can be corrected by this Leo new moon. Under the Leo new moon, we want to put ourselves in the spotlight. We want to be seen. We want to be recognized. Most importantly, we want to be seen and recognized by ourselves. Under the Leo new moon, there's also a tremendous amount of energy for creativity. But this is not the Neptunian kind of imagination creativity. This is the kind of creativity where our inner spirit is able to shine for the whole world to see and be recognized. This particular new moon in Leo has a lot of aspects that will help to energize it. There's a lot of fire in the sky right now. We have Mars in Aries, its own sign. I've been talking about that for weeks now. It's a big, important part of the astrological energies that we'll be looking at for the rest of the year. The Aries Mars right now is in a harmonious trine to the Leo new moon. So that helps to give it even more fire and more energy. This is a time where we can be more enthusiastic generally in our life, which is much needed. We also, in this new moon chart, we have a conjunction of the moon and the sun to Mercury. Traditional astrologers call this combust or cazimi. We call a combust if a planet is within 5 degrees of the sun. There's an idea that with Mercury conjunct the sun, or that the light of the sun can overpower the planet. But when the sun is conjunct Mercury, it certainly is true that our brains are fired up. Our minds are very active. We're able to think. We're able to process information. We're able to come up with answers. And this is a very good time for writers. So if you are a writer, plan to spend some time Monday and Tuesday, the 17th, the 18th, even the 19th, as the new moon begins to start to show itself. There's a lot of mental energy right now with the sun and Mercury. The presence of Mercury in the new moon chart also helps us to be more adaptable, more flexible. The story of this week is largely centered around this Leo new moon. It begins to build probably on Sunday before this video is even posted. By the time you watch this video, the energy of the new moon will be in full flower. This sort of quiet energy at the dark of the moon before the new moon is the perfect time to plant your seeds of intention. There's a lot of physical energy this week with Mars trining the sun and with the trine to Mercury. And with the trine to Mercury, there's a lot of mental energy, a lot of intellectual energy as well. On Tuesday, Venus, which is in Cancer, where it's softening all of our relationships, all of our connections. Venus harmonizes with Uranus, the planet of radical change. This is a wonderful day or two, maybe Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, certainly Tuesday, for a break in the routine. There's a crack in the dark sky where the light can come in. Certainly we have the energetic opening with the new moon anyway, but with Venus sextile Uranus, it's very fast moving, but it can help to breathe new air into our interactions with our friends, with our loved ones, with our family, and certainly with spouses or partners. On Wednesday, Mercury will leave the sign of Cancer and enter the sign of Virgo, where it will be until September 5th. While Mercury is in Virgo, which it rules, it motivates us to think in a much more detailed fashion. While Mercury is in Virgo, it's a very good time to organize your life. Mercury likes to think in terms of boxes. Very good with calendars. It's very good with plans. During this period, while Mercury is in Virgo, if there's anything that you've been putting off in terms of organizing, there's a sense right now anyway in what's happening in the world with stripping our lives down to what's essential. And Mercury in Virgo is really going to help us over the next few weeks to do that. And then on Saturday, August 22nd, the sun will enter Virgo. At that point, we have the sun and Mercury, both in Virgo, both traveling together still. So still a lot of mental energy, a lot of thinking, a lot of mental processing. So we're going to need to take some steps probably to quiet the mind, to take those deep breaths to help us to center. But this begins Virgo season, where we start to turn to the more practical details of our life. When we have the sun in Virgo, and especially with Mercury in Virgo as well, we tend to be looking at the world in terms of what needs to be improved. So as we look at things, as we look at our life, and as we look at our job, and as we look at our families and our friends, we will likely see the things that need to be improved. This is where Virgo gets this reputation for being critical. It's because Virgo sees what needs to be improved and then wants to improve those things. With the sun and Mercury both in Virgo, we will begin to see the world in that lens, which is going to be very helpful for preparing for the next phase. We'll be able to look at our life, organize it, see this needs to go, this needs to stay, and perhaps have new ideas about how to bring all of that forward into the future. Of course, we can't let another week go by without talking about Mars. We're going to be dealing with Mars, I'm afraid, my friends, for the rest of the year. Mars is very active in Aries. It's triggering everything. And Mars is at its most in its own sign of Aries. So this can be very positive for physical energy, for motivation, for activation. Mars is all about what we want and getting it and how do we defend ourselves. So it's a really good time to be learning boundaries, learning how to say no. All of these things are great with Mars. The problem with Mars this year is that Mars is triggering the Capricorn planets. Just to recap very briefly, we have 3 planets in the sign of Capricorn: Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. They're within 5 or 6 degrees right now of a triple conjunction, as they have been since January. And if there was one particular astrological configuration that explains 2020, this is probably it. In early August, Mars and Aries started to square, which is a challenging aspect, these Capricorn planets, where Capricorn is very disciplined, likes structure, is hardworking, wants to create something that lasts. Mars in Aries doesn't care about any of those things. Mars in Aries just wants action. Mars in Aries has a thought and wants to do it. There's no thinking, there's no planning, there's no structure. So when Mars is squaring these Capricorn planets in the time of COVID, it's very difficult. Be in quarantine, to be smart, to be sensible, to do the thing that's going to heal the world and not think about our own desires. And here comes Mars, which is all desire. And Mars is saying, forget all that. I just want what I want. So it's no wonder that things are so chaotic right now in the world, and we're seeing this everywhere. The square from Mars to the Capricorn planets, it started with a square to Jupiter, then it squared Pluto, and this week it squares Saturn on the 24th. We're dealing with this conflict for quite some time. There can be a lot of fear with Mars in this challenging aspect to both Saturn and Pluto, especially when Mars squares Jupiter in the middle to late September. But when Mars squares Jupiter, there's kind of a reaction of rebellion. When Mars squares Pluto, there can be a lot of fear. And when Mars squares Saturn, there's still a lot of fear, but it's more pointed, it's more concentrated. It has more to do with things like deprivation and poverty, fears about the future. These are the kinds of things that we're all dealing with to some extent or another. Some of us, if these planets are hitting a sensitive point in our chart, we might be feeling these things more intensely. Every planetary cycle, even the very difficult ones, and maybe especially the very difficult ones, has a purpose. We can't always see what the purpose is, but we usually can look backwards at our life and say, oh, that was a horrible time, but these changes happened that were amazing. And I hope that we're going to see that when we look back in a few years at this particular time. The principle that we're dealing with here with Mars challenging these Capricorn planets for months, because we're going to be dealing with this really till the end of October. So we still have 2.5 months to go. We have to resolve, how are we going to live in this situation? How are we going to preserve our own individuality and our own personal satisfaction while still live in this world, which has more and more restrictions because of the coronavirus. This is something we're all dealing with in many different ways. And hopefully by the time these Mars cycles are done at the end of October, I hope that we will have put most of this stress and chaos behind us. Now, that doesn't mean I think that the virus is going to end. I think that we're going to see the virus begin to wane. Hopefully next year, the astrology gets a little more balanced. But certainly everything that we do this year is going to have a really big impact on that. So now let's see what the moon is doing this week. Of course, the week begins with the new moon in Leo on the 18th. While the moon is in Leo, new or not, we tend to feel open-hearted, much more generous. We seek more joy. We want to have fun. We might be more giving in our personal lives. While the moon is in Leo, our attention is naturally focused more on ourselves. Leo is all about me. It's about how I or how you, it's about how we all define ourselves, how we express ourselves. On Wednesday, August 19th at 4:20 a.m. Eastern Time, the moon will move into Virgo. The shift between Leo and Virgo can feel like an abrupt one because we go from this couple of days of joy and expression and feeling very sunny and happy, and then we move into Virgo, which can still be happy, certainly, but it's much more about looking at the details and seeing what needs to be changed. I find when the moon is Virgo, I really enjoy cleaning my house. I can see much more easily what needs to be done. I can see how I need to do it and create a routine and some sort of ritual around it. While the moon is in Virgo, it will oppose Neptune, which is in Pisces, which is an interesting opposition. It's an interesting polarity because we have the moon in Virgo, the sign of details, opposite Neptune in its own sign of Pisces, which is very dreamy, imaginative, easily distracted. There might be a day or so, especially on Thursday, the 20th, that could be a time where we need to put some conscious effort into making sure that we're stabilizing ourselves. This could be a time when we're going to want to find a grounding practice to help us to stay centered. On Friday, August 21st at 5:16 a.m. Eastern, the moon is going to move into Libra. While the moon is in Libra, it's going to square the Capricorn planets on Saturday in particular, and oppose Mars. So it's going to set off that whole challenging planetary cycle. And you don't have to remember the details of that. But because the Libra moon is more sensitive energetically, the Libra moon really craves equanimity and balance. It craves peacefulness and integration. And so when the moon, really when any moon is opposite Mars, but especially the Libra or the Pisces moon is opposite Mars, it can be very disturbing. That could be a day where our nerves are jangled, and especially if we're in a situation where there's a lot of conflict, it's going to feel more difficult on Friday, but especially on Saturday, the 22nd. So just know that that is a possibility and be prepared for that. Make sure that you have a way to regain that equanimity if you feel like you've lost it. It could also be a time when you're pulled into conflicts that are not even your own. But just because there's all of this energy that's floating around, people are reacting and they're getting angry and they may not even know what they're mad at. And then the moon is going to move into Scorpio, which is powerful, which is intense, which is dramatic. But that's not a bad thing. When Mars is in Aries squaring the Capricorn planets, then the moon is in Scorpio, helping us to feel strong internally and courageous emotionally. So we're going to end the week on that note in this place of empowerment and personal power. What a great way to end this video. So thank you so much for joining me. If you would like daily information on what the planets are doing every day, please follow me on Facebook. I'll have the link below. You can also sign up on my website for my monthly astrology report, which will help to prepare you for the month ahead. And I'll look forward to seeing you next week.